Hey everyone, I'm Mr. Hark. Today's story is about a family whose 2-year-old baby vanishes from their home without a trace. Weeks of searching turn up nothing until the family checks their trail cameras. What they find: Bigfoot carrying their baby through the woods. The creature is seen multiple times, but the baby is nowhere to be found. Then, 6 months later, the creature returns the child, unharmed. What happened during that time? Stay tuned, because this story is much more than a simple missing child case. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who still doubts Bigfoot. Let's begin. I always tell people, if you want the short version, it goes like this. I turned my back for maybe 8 minutes. My son was gone. 6 months later, something brought him back, and he was not scared of it. That's the headline way of saying it. But it doesn't feel like that when I think about it. It feels like a long, slow noise that never really stopped. Like it is still going, under everything. I know how it sounds. I know what people think when they hear the word Bigfoot. Most of them smile first. Some roll their eyes. A few lean in like they want to be scared. I get all of that. I used to be one of them. So fine, start there. I did not believe in any of this. I just know what I saw and what my boy did after he came home. And if you are listening to this thinking you might hear something fun or spooky and then go to bed, I don't know. Maybe you will. I do not go to bed the same way anymore. My name is Ayla. When this happened, I was 32. We still live actually, on the edge of timberland in Washington state, not way off the grid, but far enough that if the power goes out, you wait. If you call the sheriff in the middle of the night, it is one guy in a truck, not a whole response team with lights and sirens. We had a small house, 1-story, old place someone's uncle built in the 70s. The kind of place where the porch light throws this weak little circle, and then it's just black beyond it. You step off the bottom stair, and you are in the trees in about 10 steps. My husband, Ethan, works on a road crew. Power lines, down trees, that sort of thing. I did billing from home for a dentist in town. We had one kid, Noah. He was 20 months old that summer. Still mostly words like up and truck and mama, but he understood more than he said. Climbed on everything. That kind of kid. We moved out there because it was cheaper, honestly, and because Ethan liked the space. That's what he always said. Trees, quiet, chickens in the yard, no landlord. I liked it too, at first. I liked hearing the creak when I opened the window at night. I did not think about what else was hearing us. The first weird thing was the chickens. We had 8 hens. They were my project more than Ethan's. I kept them locked up at night because of raccoons. You live out there, you know. Everything wants your chickens. One morning I came out and the coop door was shut, the latch was hooked, and the eggs were gone. Everyone. No broken shells, no feathers, no mess. Just 8 angry hens yelling at me because their breakfast disappeared. I remember laughing and telling Ethan, either you collected and forgot to tell me, or we have the politest raccoon in the county. He shrugged it off, said he had not gone near the coop, said maybe I miscounted the night before. But it kept happening. Not every night, maybe twice a week. Coop latch, no damage, eggs gone. The latch was one of those simple hook and eye deals, but you still have to lift and drop it. The weird part wasn't even that something could do it. The weird part was that nothing else was disturbed. The feed bin, the waterer, the little solar light I had zip-tied to the fence. It was like someone came in on tiptoe, took exactly what they wanted, and reset the scene. After a couple weeks of that, Ethan bought trail cameras. Our neighbor, if you can call him that, is an older guy named Cal. His place is about a quarter mile down the road, but you can cut through the woods to get there faster. Everybody knows him because he hunts. Not just deer season stuff. He's one of those guys who belongs in the woods. You look at his boots and they have a different kind of mud on them than anybody else. I liked him. He was quiet, but he would check on me if Ethan was working storm shifts. Once he came over when he saw me trying to carry a 50-pound sack of feed and just took it out of my hands like it was nothing. So when Ethan bought the cameras, Cal helped put them up. One facing the coop, one aimed down toward the tree line, one over by the old logging road that cuts along the creek. Those little black boxes with infrared lights and SD cards. I did not care about the brand back then. I do now. I could tell you the exact model numbers. That is what this does to you. You start memorizing things that should not matter. Anyway, once the cameras were up, the egg problem stopped. For about a week, nothing touched the coop. I even joked, maybe the raccoons saw the cameras. We got normal stuff, deer at night, a fox once, a whole family of raccoons climbing the fence but never going in. We relaxed. We thought, okay, whatever it was, it moved on. We were wrong. It just changed the way it came close. The day Noah disappeared is burned into me in slices. Not one clean replay, just pieces. It was early, maybe 7:30 in the morning. Late summer, one of those mornings where the grass is soaked with dew but the air already feels warm. Ethan had left before sunrise for a long shift. It was just me and Noah and a cup of coffee. He had this cheap little plastic truck he loved, bright orange thing. He would push it along the rug and make this humming sound. Not vroom, just a hum, like he was charging up. The back door off the kitchen had a screen door that never latched quite right. We were always going in and out to the porch. That morning I propped it because I wanted the breeze. I remember looking up at the clock. It said 7:42. I remember that because I told myself, I have a few minutes before I need to clock into work. My laptop was on the counter, coffee next to it. Noah was on the rug in the living room a few steps away, pushing his truck back and forth. My phone buzzed, a message from my manager about some insurance codes. I answered. I stirred my coffee. I scrolled. I did what people do. I told myself, he is right there. It's fine. If you are a parent and you are listening to this, you probably already feel it in your stomach. I don't know exactly how many minutes passed. I say 8 because that is what I told the police and what they wrote down, and it's what the timestamp on the message said between when I wrote back and when I looked away. But in my head, it is just a few minutes where nothing sounded wrong. Then it got quiet. People say that in stories. It got too quiet, but it really did. Noah hummed when he played. He babbled. He banged the truck on the floor. Suddenly I realized I was only hearing the creak and the fridge. I walked into the living room and the rug was empty. The truck was gone. The screen door was not only unlatched, it was sitting half open, bumping a little in the breeze. I did not think monster. I did not think kidnapping. I thought, he crawled out and he is on the porch. I said his name, once, twice. My voice did that high, fake calm thing people do when they are already afraid. No answer. I stepped out onto the porch in bare feet. The wood was cold and damp. My first thought was, don't slip. It's funny what your brain clings to. The yard is just a rectangle of grass and dirt before it drops to the trees. That morning it was all silver with dew. You could see where our boots had left paths earlier in the week. Right away I saw the small footprints. Tiny, bare, perfect little prints going off the bottom step into the grass. You know how toddler feet look. Wider at the toes, little heel, the way they splay a bit because they are still learning balance. The dew was pressed down into clear ovals. They went straight out from the steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, a line of them. I followed them, my heart hammering, expecting to see Noah squatting in the grass somewhere picking a flower or something. The prints went about halfway across the yard, and then they just stopped, like someone picked him up. I remember standing there, every hair on my arm standing up, and my brain trying to make it rational. Maybe the grass got drier here. Maybe he stepped onto a rock. Maybe the sun hit that part first. Except it hadn't. The dew was still heavy all around. If he had taken another step, there would have been something. I shouted his name then. Not calm, I screamed it. I ran in the circle around the yard, looking under the porch, under the truck, by the side of the house. I ran back inside, checking behind the couch, in the bathroom, like somehow he had doubled back past me. He wasn't there. Something in me switched over. I ran to the front door, grabbed my keys, my phone, and bolted out to the road. I called 911 while I was already running toward Cal's place. By the time the deputy got there, the yard was already trampled. That still bothers me. I know they had to search. I know I was running all over like a crazy person, calling Noah, crying. You do not think about preserving a scene when your kid is missing. Cal arrived before the deputy. I remember that clearly. I met him halfway down the drive, gasping out, "Noah, I can't find Noah." And he didn't waste any time with questions. He just followed me back. He did something different though. Where I ran, he walked, slow, eyes down. He did not step on the little prints. He went around them. He crouched down by where they ended, put one hand in the grass, and just stayed like that for a few seconds. No talking. Then he stood up and looked not at the yard, but at the space around the house. Later, when I watched the documentary people replay this, I saw my own body in the background. I was pacing in these short, frantic loops, one hand in my hair, one hand holding my phone, like some animal in a cage. Cal walked the perimeter of the house like he was tracking something I could not see. He went under the windows, around the coop, along the edge of the porch. Then he called me over. There were more prints. Big ones. Bare. You could see the toes in the soft dirt under the eaves where the ground never fully dried out. They were not running. There was no sign of a struggle or scramble. The prints went in this wide, slow spiral around the house. You could see where it had paused, turned, stepped closer, stepped back. Like circling. Like pacing. They went past the chicken coop, near the back steps, around the side windows, then back toward the trees. They did not overlap the little prints. They stopped at the same point in the yard where Noah's tracks ended. That was the first moment I thought, somebody came into my yard, someone was watching my house. I said someone, human. My brain refused anything else. When the deputy arrived, I pointed it all out to him. I was half hysterical. He looked at the big prints, frowned, and said, "Could be a bear." Cal shook his head and said, quiet but firm, "Bears don't walk like they're thinking." It stuck with me. The way he said it, not joking. The deputy took photos with his phone. He took my statement. He radioed for more units, for search and rescue, all of that. I barely took any of it in. All I wanted was for them to find my boy. At that point, it was still morning. By dark, I knew something had gone wrong in a way I did not have words for yet. Search and rescue hit it hard those first days. I will give them that. They brought dogs. They brought volunteers from town. There were orange vests in my yard, parked trucks up and down the road, people signing in at a folding table like some awful festival. They set a command tent at the end of our driveway. Maps pinned up, little dots for grids, that kind of thing. They worked methodically. The dogs picked up Noah's scent easily from his blanket, from his little shoes. They went straight down into the woods behind the house, down to the creek. I went with them. Not supposed to, but nobody stopped me at first. There is a narrow trail we used to get to the water. It drops fairly steep, roots slick under the leaves. I know it by heart. I walked it 1,000 times before that day with a basket of laundry or a jug for water. The dogs pulled hard at first, going faster than I could. The handlers kept telling them, "Easy." They pulled anyway, noses down, bodies tight. Then, right at the creek bank, something changed. Both dogs hit the water's edge, noses working, and then they started this tight circling. One whined. The other kind of shook his head, like he was confused. They stepped into the shallows, sniffed rocks, came back out. Back and forth, but no clear direction. The handler told the search commander, "Scent ends here." That phrase made me cold all over. Ends here. Like there was a line. The creek there is not huge. You can hop it if you're steady, or cross on rocks. Flat stones with green slippery coatings. The water was not even knee-deep in most places that time of year. But for dogs, for scent, running water is a wall. Cal was standing a little downstream, on one of the bigger flat rocks in the middle of the flow. He bent down and touched something, then called the deputy over. I saw them both looking at the same point, but I couldn't see from where I was. Later, in a photo, I saw it. A footprint on the rock itself, not Noah's. Something big, bare. Like a giant had stepped there with a foot full of creek water and pressed down, washing around it. I heard the handler say, "Lo, we have no direction from here. It's gone." They moved the search focus outward from that point. Both sides of the creek, downstream, upstream, into the ravines. They had people on horseback, drones up above scanning the canopy, all of it. The first night, they didn't let me go home. They put me in a chair by the command tent with a blanket around my shoulders and gave me coffee. I kept hearing, "We still have daylight, kids can survive a long time," all those phrases they must practice saying. Ethan was out on a job when this started. They reached him by radio. He made it back just before sunset. When he stepped out of the truck and saw the tents and the vests and the lights, he looked at me like he did not recognize his own house. He crossed the distance between us in about 2 strides, and I remember the sound he made when I told him. It wasn't even a word, just this broken inhale. That night in the dark, with generators humming and men with headlamps moving in and out of the trees, I thought, this is a nightmare, but the kind that ends when someone finds him. When the sun comes up. I had no room in my head for anything else. We did not think about the cameras until that first night was nearly over. It was maybe midnight. We were back inside the house for the first time since morning. They had told us to try to sleep, or at least lay down, because search would start again at dawn. I went into Noah's room, touched his crib rail, and almost folded onto the floor. Ethan was moving around like a robot, turning lights on, turning them off, opening cupboards and closing them again, busy hands. He walked into the living room, looked at the wall, and then he said, "The cameras." It was like someone slapped me awake. The trail cams. One pointed straight down toward the back porch and yard. We went out with a flashlight and a step stool. The porch light barely touched the yard, especially now that dozens of boot prints had torn up the dew. The searchers had strung some tape and flags, but no one was out there at that moment. They were all deeper in the woods. Ethan pulled the card from the camera by the porch. His hands shook. He had to try twice to get it out. Then we did the same with the ones by the coop and the logging road. We did not have a fancy setup then. No live feed, no monitor. Just his old laptop. We sat at the kitchen table, just us and the blue light of the screen. He slotted the first SD card in and opened the folder. Hundreds of little thumbnail images, all with timestamps. Most were nothing. Swaying branches, a raccoon, a deer at 2 in the morning. Every time something moved and triggered the sensor, he started scrolling backward from that morning. We saw me in the yard at maybe 7:50, running around in my robe. We saw the deputy's car pull up. Volunteers. Nothing showed the moment. No camera had caught Noah leaving the house. The porch one had been triggered once around 7:40, but the image was just the open door and part of the rug. No body. Just absence. I felt sick. Ethan went further back. Midnight, 1 in the morning. 3 in the morning, that was when he stopped. "Look," he said. The timestamp read 3:11 in the morning. The picture was grainy, washed in that weird trail cam black and white. You could see the tree line. The little bright cone of the porch light hitting the first few trunks. Between 2 of the trees, a figure stood. Tall, thinner than a tree, but about the same height as the lower branches. Darker than the background. No clear details. Just the outline of a head and shoulders and torso. No glowing eyes, no face, just stillness. "I don't like that," I said. We clicked forward. 3:18. 7 minutes later, the camera had triggered again. This time the figure was closer, just inside the edge of the light, where it washed out the top and left the lower half in shadow. You could see more shape now. Broad shoulders, arms hanging. Still no face, not really, but you could see where the head must be. It was not a man in a coat. That was my first thought, but the proportions were wrong. The arms were too long. The way it stood, there was no slump, no hunch, just straight. It was facing the house. Next image, 3:25, nothing, just trees. We went through the rest of that night. The only other trigger near dawn was at 7:42, when the door was already open. Ethan didn't say Bigfoot. He just said, "What the hell is that?" We showed the footage to the deputy in the morning. He watched it twice, then said it could be a person, maybe a poacher or someone trespassing, maybe a trick of light. He said trail cams distort distance. "Why would a person stand still in my yard at 3 in the morning?" I asked. He did not have an answer for that. He just said they would add it to the report. I tried to push it aside because every time I looked at the still frame, I had this weird feeling in my stomach. Not fear exactly, more like being watched, even just sitting there at the table. That was day 1. I am not going to walk you through every day of the search. It blurs, but some things stand out. They searched hard those first 10 days, grids, creek banks, ravines, helicopter for one afternoon with a flyer camera, horseback riders on the old logging roads, volunteers on ATVs. They checked every registered sex offender in the county, every relative, every friend, nothing. Every single promising lead stopped at that creek, at those rocks. They kept coming back to the house between pushes. They would check in with us, ask the same questions. Did anyone strange drive by that week? Did we fight with anyone? Did we have cameras elsewhere? Did we have enemies? We started sleeping in shifts, one of us on the couch, one in the bed. Sometimes people from Ethan's work would sit with us. Sometimes my sister would come over and make coffee and force me to eat. Through all this, there were little things that did not fit. The chickens, for one. The first few nights after Noah vanished, nothing touched the coop. Then, about a week in, the eggs started disappearing again. Same way, coop latched, no mess, we told the deputy. He nodded, wrote it down, but there were bigger things going on, and I could tell he thought we were hanging on to side details because we were powerless everywhere else. The trash was another thing. Our cans sit around the back side of the house. Raccoons had gotten into them before. You recognize that kind of mess. Shredded bags, everything strewn. Now and then, usually on nights when the search crews had gone home early and it was just us, I would come out in the morning and find the lid not even fully removed, just shifted enough to reach in. Some food scraps gone, nothing ripped, nothing scattered. If it was a person, they were very neat and oddly shy. Ethan, being Ethan, added more cameras. He put one on a tree facing the trash, one looking out over the back porch from the opposite angle, one down by the creek, facing upstream. He set the cameras to record short video clips, not just stills. We did not catch much at first. A bobcat one night, a bear another. You learn to read the shape of animals on those grainy feeds. The way a bear moves is heavy and rolling. The way a deer looks back over its shoulder. After a while, you can tell in a second. The thing we were looking for never showed as clearly as we wanted it to. That almost made it worse. It was around the second month when we saw him. The official search was scaling down by then. They weren't calling it off, not in front of us, but the big operations were over. Instead of 30 people, there were maybe 5 on a given day, walking new lines, rechecking drainages. The command tent had been taken down. They left us a contact sheet and said, "Call if you see anything at all." We kept the cameras running. It was something Ethan could do that felt like action. Every night he swapped the cards. Every night we sat at that table and scrolled through footage. Most nights it was nothing special. Then one morning, he stopped on a clip from the camera by the creek. The timestamp said 2:04 in the morning. The clip was short, maybe 10 seconds. It showed the creek in that flat gray way those cameras do, with fog hanging low over the water. The infrared made the mist look almost solid. A shape moved through it, big, from the far side of the frame toward the near shore. Shoulders hunched a little, arms around something. I leaned in so close, my nose almost touched the screen. The big figure was carrying something against its chest. At first I thought it might be a deer or some kind of carcass, just from the bulk. But as it turned, the headlamp effect of the IR shifted and you could see hair. Short. A small round head tucked in, resting on a dark chest. The image stuttered, but there was one frame where the head tilted just enough for the side of the face to catch light. Even in that crappy resolution, I knew my child. It was the way his hair stuck up at the front. He had this stubborn little cowlick that never lay flat, even wet. The way his fingers curled when he slept, tucked against himself. Those are things only a parent would see, maybe. But I saw them. He wasn't fighting in the footage. He wasn't flailing or reaching back. He was curled in, one small hand gripping whatever fur or hide he was pressed against. His head rested under the bigger shape's chin. I grabbed Ethan's wrist so hard I left marks. "That's him," I said. My voice cracked. "That's Noah." Ethan did not speak for a few seconds. His eyes stayed on the screen. Finally he said, "It might be a trick of the light," but his voice did not sound like he believed it. We showed that clip to everyone. The sheriff, the Sarah guy, my sister, Cal. The sheriff said it was inconclusive, could be anything. He pointed at the pixelation, said our brains fill in patterns. He did not say we were crazy. He didn't have to. Cal just watched it once, then looked at me. "That's him," he said. "Look at how he's holding on. I know what people are thinking when they hear this. Why didn't we have the original file analyzed? Why didn't we send it to this or that expert?" We did send it off to a guy the sheriff knew, some forensic video person. It took weeks. He came back with no definitive conclusion. The resolution was too low. Motion blur, all of that. We were left with what we had, 10 seconds of gray fog and shapes that, to me, were my son and something carrying him like a parent. After that clip, everything changed inside our house. Before, I was just a mother whose kid vanished. After, I was a mother whose kid was out there somewhere, being carried around at night by something that moved through the woods like it owned them. I stopped sleeping, really. I dozed in the chair by the window, waking at every twig snap. Ethan became obsessed. He made a map of our property and the adjoining timberland. He pinned printouts from the trail cam footage, the creek, the yard. He marked every spot where the dogs had lost the trail. Every time we found a footprint, he measured stride length, wrote it down. He talked about patterns. He said, it moves along the creek beds when it wants to break scent. It uses the ridges when the wind is up. It knows the gaps in the cameras. I did not want to think of it as it being intelligent. But the evidence lined up in a way that was hard to ignore. Every time we got something on a camera, by the time we got there, it was hours old. The footprints, if there were any, were softened by dew or rain. Sometimes we would find a place where the moss was disturbed in a clean line, like something heavy had moved along without stepping on soil. The volunteers that still came out refused to camp at night. One guy with military training went out with the SAR team for an evening push and came back after only 2 hours, white as a sheet. He told the commander he had heard a whoop so loud and close it vibrated his chest, and his body just reacted. He could not make himself go further. He did not say Bigfoot. He said, there's something big out there making noises I do not recognize, and I am not going back in after dark. Someone would be in the bottom of a ravine and their voice would cut in and out. They blamed the terrain, the mineral content in the rock. Maybe that is all it was. But it added to this feeling that the woods themselves were not on our side. Cal had a theory. He said, these woods are a maze if you don't know them. If something does know them, really know them, it can move around you all day and you will never catch up. He started sketching for us how he would evade a search if he had to. Walk in creek beds to break scent. Use rocky ridges to avoid footprints. Move when the wind is strong enough to carry sound away. Stay still when it is dead calm. It's not just hiding, he said one night, sitting at our table with a mug between his hands. It is staying one step ahead. When he said it that way, I felt a part of me click into place that I did not want to click. Because he did not mean a man. Around the 3rd month, there was another clip that shifted things. This one was from a camera Ethan had strapped to a tree that overlooked a fallen log near the creek. It was an old big tree, moss all over it, laid across a little ravine like a bridge. Cal said animals used it as a crossing, so Ethan thought we might get something interesting. He was right. It was just after dawn in the clip. The timestamp said 6:12 in the morning. The forest was this soft gray light just starting to show. On the log, about halfway across, a small figure walked. Not a raccoon, not a young bear. You could see 2 legs, 2 arms out for balance. This careful, steady step, heel to toe, like a kid practicing. I knew that walk. It was Noah. It had to be. His height, the way his head sat on his shoulders, even the way he stuck his tongue out a little when he concentrated. He walked that log like he had done it 100 times. In the next clip, a little later, he was on the near side of the ravine, standing next to a tree. His clothes were not the ones he had disappeared in. He wore something rougher, darker, maybe too big. His hair looked longer, shaggier. He lifted one hand and knocked his knuckles against the tree trunk 3 times. Slow, 1, 2, 3. Then he paused. Then he did 2 knocks. Pause. Then 3 again. A beat later, from somewhere off camera deeper in the trees, there was a heavier knock, like a big piece of wood on another trunk. Answering. Noah stepped back and looked that way. He did not flinch. He did not startle. He waited, like this was a conversation. I watched that clip over and over. My stomach turned over every time. My baby had learned a knot pattern. We played that video for a child therapist later, after he came back. At the time, I showed it to the sheriff, to CR. They all watched it in total silence. The therapist said, kids under stress cling to repeated sounds as anchors. If he associated that pattern with safety or with being found, he would repeat it, even alone. That made me feel a little better and a lot worse at the same time. Because if he felt safe enough to learn it, what did that say about whatever was teaching him? While all of this was happening out there, things were happening closer to home too. Around the 5th month, I stopped feeling like my house was a safe place. I started feeling like I was inside something's root. One night, Ethan and I were both asleep in the living room. I don't remember deciding to sleep there. It just became easier to crash on the couch than walk down the hall to our bedroom. I must have drifted off around midnight. I woke up with this feeling of being watched. The room was dark except for the porch light coming in around the edge of the curtain. The old clock over the TV ticked loud in the quiet. I looked at the window and saw the outline of a shape. Just a darker rectangle within the frame, like something large was outside blocking the light. For a second, I thought it was my own reflection. You know how you get that double image sometimes? Then it moved. It wasn't much, just a slight tilt. But it was enough. My breath caught. I did not sit up all the way, I just looked. After a moment, the outline pulled back. I heard a faint scuff on the porch boards, then nothing. I lay there for a long time, heart pounding, wondering if I had dreamed it. In the morning, Ethan checked the porch camera. The clip showed exactly what I had felt. Around 3 in the morning again, the big figure came out of the tree line, walked straight up to the porch, and stopped in full view of the camera for the first time. The footage is the thing that would be in every thumbnail if this was some cheap show. The classic money shot. The figure stood nearly as tall as the porch roof, so, I don't know, 7 feet, broad. Hair all over. Shoulders and chest like someone wearing a heavy coat, except the outline was wrong for clothing. Too smooth in some places, too uneven in others. It stepped close to the window, angled its head slightly, like it was looking in, one arm lifted. The hand, if that is what you want to call it, pressed against the glass, massively thick, like someone wearing heavy gloves, but you could see where the joints were. The palm left a smear when it pulled away. Later, when we looked at the glass, you could see dirt and something sticky, like tree sap, dried in a fan pattern. Beside the big smear, about halfway down the window, there was another mark, smaller, messier. Like a child's hand, fingers spread, had been dragged down the glass and then let go. In the video, you could not clearly see the smaller shape. It stayed behind the bigger one, mostly blocked. But there was one frame where something moved at hip height. A smaller arm? A head? I do not know. I just know my body reacted the first time I saw that second smear. I remember saying to Ethan, he was right there, right outside that glass. Ethan looked like he wanted to break something. He said, I should have been awake. I should have been sitting on that couch with a gun. Cal was there when we watched it too. He put a hand on Ethan's shoulder and said, if you had opened that door with a gun in your hand, I don't think you would have your boy back now. At the time, that sounded insane to me. No, I am not sure it was. The night everything turned from this long, strange standoff into something else entirely was in early winter. We had reached the 6th month. Thanksgiving had gone by with an empty chair at my sister's table. Christmas decorations started popping up in town. Our house stayed dark. The weather turned nasty. One of those storms where the temperature hovers right at freezing and the rain turns to ice on contact. Branches snap under the weight. Power lines too. Search had almost completely stopped by then except for the occasional follow-up. People still cared. I don't want to make it sound like they didn't, but you could feel the shift. We were moving from active search to cold case, and everybody knew it but us. That night, the wind came up around dusk. You could hear it in the trees like a distant roar. Then the rain started. Hard. Against the windows, on the roof. The lights flickered once, came back, flickered again. Classic rural storm behavior. Ethan had done some extra wiring by then to keep the cameras on as long as possible. External batteries, little covers over the housings to protect them from water. He had become a kind of amateur engineer out of raw desperation. Even so, by 9 that night, the camera feeds started to fail one by one. Moisture on the lens, batteries draining fast in the cold. We watched the little status lights blink out on the app. He swore under his breath and pulled on his boots to go outside and check them. I grabbed his arm. Don't, I said. Not in this. He looked at me and I could see the war in his eyes. The need to do something versus the reality of walking around under falling branches in the dark. He stayed. We lit candles when the power finally went off for good. It got colder in the house quickly. At some point later, I don't know the exact time, maybe close to midnight, the wind eased for a minute. That's what I remember. This odd, heavy stillness, just rain ticking on the roof. And then there was a knock at the back door, not loud, not like someone pounding, just this soft, deliberate tap. 3 times. I froze. Ethan heard it too. We looked at each other. Then it came again, closer. You could feel it through the floor. Tap, tap, tap. The way you feel someone heavy walking on the porch, that dull thud in the boards. Ethan started to stand, automatically reaching for the rifle we kept by the door by then. Cal, who was sitting in a chair by the wall, shot out his hand and grabbed Ethan's wrist. "Don't," he said, low and urgent. "If you want him back, you don't act like the threat." I remember thinking, what are you talking about? It took him. It is the threat. But something in his face stopped Ethan. His jaw clenched. He let go of the gun. The knock came again. Slower this time, almost like a question. Cal stood up. He moved to the door slowly, like you would approach a skittish animal. He did not flip on the porch light. The power was already out anyway. He eased the door open a crack. Cold air rushed in, smelling like wet pine and mud. He did not step out. He stayed in the doorway, reached down, and set a bowl of water on the floor just inside the threshold. Then he took a blanket off the back of the couch, folded it once, and laid it next to the bowl. He said, not loud, just conversational, "He's cold. He's small. Bring him home. We won't hurt you." I thought in that moment that Cal had finally lost his mind. There was no answer. No shape stepped into the light. The rain filled the silence. After a minute, he shut the door again. He moved the deadbolt slower than usual, like he did not want the click to sound aggressive. Ethan was shaking. I realized I was too. We did not sleep much after that. The house creaked in the wind. Sleet ticked on the windows. Once or twice I thought I heard something moving on the porch, but it might have been the tree limbs scraping the siding. At some point before dawn, I must have dozed off in the armchair. I woke up when the room got brighter. There are some images that do not feel like memories. They feel like something someone else showed you on a screen. That morning is one of those for me. It is almost too clean. The storm had passed. The rain had stopped. Weak winter light leaked in around the curtains. The house was cold. My breath puffed a little in front of my face. My back ached from sleeping crooked. I heard a small sound, a little cough. For a second, my brain put it in the wrong place. I thought, that sounds like when Noah wakes up from a nap. And then the rest of me kicked in and I sat bolt upright. The sound came again, a soft little throat clear, from the porch. I ran to the back door and yanked it open without thinking. He was sitting on the top step, legs crossed, back straight, hands in his lap like he had been told to wait there, bare feet on the cold wood. He looked fine, not frostbitten, not blue. His cheeks were flushed pink from the cold, but he did not look miserable. He was wearing clothes I had never seen before. A heavy knit sweater, rough pants, some kind of thick shirt underneath. All of it too big, rolled up at the sleeves and ankles. His hair was longer, down over his ears. His face looked older in that strange way little kids do after a growth spurt. His eyes were the same. For a second, he did not move. He just turned his head, looked past me into the house, and then back over my shoulder toward the tree line. He did not cry. He did not run to me. I stepped forward slowly, like I was afraid I would scare him away. My voice came out hoarse. "Noah?" He blinked. Then he uncrossed his legs, stood up, and walked into my arms like this was any normal morning. When I picked him up, I expected him to be stiff or shivering. He was warm. His skin felt different, tougher somehow. Like a kid who has spent a whole summer barefoot outside, only more. He smelled like pine needles and creek water and something sweet and wild, like crushed berries. I carried him inside, sobbing, calling for Ethan. Ethan came running out of the hallway, hair sticking up, eyes huge. He grabbed us both, and for a moment we were just a pile on the floor, all arms and tears and noise. Then the practical part started up again. We called 911. We wrapped Noah in a blanket. We checked him for injuries. He had none. A couple of healed scratches on his legs, some calluses on his hands and feet. That was it. He looked at the bowl of water by the door and reached for it automatically, like he expected it. He drank carefully, not slurping, not desperate, controlled. I will never forget that. The paramedics checked him out first. Pulse, temperature, blood sugar. Everything was weirdly normal. He was a little light for his age, but not the way you would expect a kid to be after months alone in the woods. At the hospital, they did more tests. Blood work, x-rays, all of it. They asked him questions, simple ones. His name, our names. He answered quietly, like he was not sure how loud to be. He did not talk about where he had been. He did not mention any person or animal. Not then. The doctor told us. He's underweight, but not dangerously. He's not dehydrated. No signs of major trauma or long-term infection. Honestly, I would expect him to be in a lot worse shape. I asked, how is that possible? The doctor shrugged in that way they do when they don't want to speculate. He said maybe someone had taken him in, cared for him, then dropped him back off. He suggested a psychiatric evaluation for me and Ethan, gently, when we insisted he had been taken by something in the woods. They ran some tests on the matter in his stomach too. I did not even know that was a thing they could do. Later, in one of the follow-up meetings, a woman from the lab explained that they found bits of wild roots, berry skins, some kind of tuber, and traces of pollen from plants that did not grow in our valley. Things from higher up in the mountains. No processed food, no preservatives. She thought it was interesting. I thought it was horrifying. My son had been eating like something wild. The official story became that he had been abducted and then returned by an unknown person. The sheriff floated a remote off-grid camp theory. Someone unstable but not violent. They closed the case as resolved with unanswered questions. For us, it wasn't over, it was just different. You expect a kid to come back from something like that terrified, clingy, afraid of the dark, nightmares. Noah did have nightmares, but they were not what I expected. The first night home, we put him in our bed between us. I thought he would sleep like a rock, just from exhaustion. Instead, he woke up at almost exactly 3:11 in the morning. He sat straight up, not crying, just awake. He turned his head toward the back of the house like he was listening. Then he slid off the bed, padded down the hall, and went to the back window by the kitchen. He pressed his palm against the glass and stood there, breathing quietly like he was waiting for something. I followed him and tried to pick him up. He stiffened at first, then allowed it, but his eyes stayed on the tree line. There was nothing there but darkness. No shape. No sound. After a minute, he relaxed. He let me carry him back to bed. He fell asleep again without a fuss. The second night, he did the same thing. Woke at 3:11. Window. Hand on glass. Listening. We started checking clocks. It was always that time. Not 3 o'clock exactly. Not 3:30. 3:11. I do not know why. I don't think I want to. He also refused cooked meat. The kid who used to eat chicken nuggets like they were going out of style now pushed them away. He would eat fruit, nuts, bread. If I tried to give him anything greasy or heavily seasoned, he would sniff it and turn his head. He had picked up habits too. Little things. Sometimes when he was falling asleep, he would tap his knuckles lightly on the headboard or the wall. The first time he did that, my stomach dropped. I recognized the pattern from the video by the tree. I asked him, "What does that mean, honey?" He looked at me, thoughtful, like he was searching for words. Then he said, "Safe." That was the word he used. Safe. The child therapist we saw said that it might just be how his brain categorized that sound, that he had heard it in moments when he was not being hurt, and his nervous system wrapped around it. That makes sense in one way. In another, it makes you lie awake wondering what was happening all the other times, the times when that sound was not there. We tried not to press him. Every book, every professional, every well-meaning person told us the same thing. Do not force. Let him talk when he is ready. Kids process trauma slowly. So we waited. Days turned into weeks. He started acting more like his old self in some ways. Playing with toys, laughing at cartoons, climbing on the couch. But there was always this extra layer. He did not like loud music. He hated the vacuum cleaner. He flinched hard at sudden noises, but not all of them. A plate breaking in the kitchen would send him into my lap shaking. A tree cracking in a storm, nothing. He would look at the window, interested. It was like his danger scale had been flipped. A little while after Noah came home, when the power company finally got around to replacing one of the lines, Ethan realized he had never actually checked the SD card from the camera by the old logging road for the night of the storm. The card had been half ejected when he tried to read it the next day. The camera housing was scratched up, like something had rubbed against it hard, maybe trying to move it. At the time, we were too busy with doctors and social workers and family to think much about it. But once the dust settled a bit, he remembered. He plugged it into the computer. The file browser showed a bunch of corrupted thumbnails. White blocks, weird icons. Most of the clips would not open. Moisture damage, he figured. He is stubborn though. He downloaded some cheap recovery software and started poking at it. He got a few still frames back from the days before. Elk, a coyote. One clip from the storm night opened halfway. The video glitched and jumped, green lines across the screen. The audio was mostly static. But in the middle of it, for maybe 3 seconds, the image steadied. You could see the edge of the logging road, the line of younger trees on the downhill side. And there, at the brush line, was the big figure again. This angle showed more of its side. One arm was slightly outstretched, like it was steadying something. Beside it, lower to the ground, was another shape. Shorter, stockier. Not human, not thin like a kid. The proportions were wrong, more like a bear cub on 2 legs. But not exactly that either. It moved quick, low, shadowing the larger one. As they shifted, there was this moment, just a frame or two, where the bigger one turned its body slightly, putting itself between the camera and the smaller one, the way a parent does when a car pulls too close to a crosswalk. That instinctive block. Then the clip broke up again, pixels, static, end. We watched those 3 seconds more times than I can count. For me, that was the thing that truly messed me up, more than the hand on the glass, more than the creak clip. That movement was so familiar, protective. I realized then that whatever had taken Noah was not alone. It was part of a group, a family maybe, and that it had kept him close, not like food, but like something small and harmless it had decided to look after for a while. I know how that sounds. Believe me, I do. It feels wrong to even say it. Like I am defending something that stole my child. I am not. I'm just telling you what I saw. People always want to know what Noah says about it now. That is their favorite question. How much does he remember? Has he ever drawn it? Does he talk about the creature? The answer is, sort of. We did what we were told at first. We did not interrogate him. We let the therapist guide the questions. Most of the time he would go quiet when anyone said woods or creek in a certain tone. When he was around 4, he started to talk more on his own. Little comments would slip out. Once he was stacking blocks and he said, matter of fact, too close. You don't go close. I asked, too close to what, baby? He tapped the floor and said, the edge. Then he changed the subject. Another time, during a storm, when the power went out, he padded to the back door and looked at it for a long time. I asked him what he was doing. He said, listening. I said, for what? He said, for the knock. Like it was obvious. He never described a face. If I asked about animals, he would name the normal ones. Deer, owls, bears, and picture books. If I showed him a picture of a gorilla once, just casually, he stared at it for a long time, then pushed the book away. He did not cry. He just looked, conflicted, like it stirred something he did not want. The clearest thing he has ever said about it came one night when he was about 5. He had had a bad dream. Woke up sweaty and shaky. I was sitting on the edge of his bed, rubbing his back. He knocked lightly on the headboard. 3, pause, 2, pause, 3. And I said, does that make you feel better? He nodded. I asked, who taught you that, honey? He hesitated, then said, the tall one. My heart jumped so hard I almost lost my breath. I asked carefully, what did the tall one do? He was quiet for a long time. I almost thought he had fallen back asleep. Then he said, so soft I barely heard it, carried. That was the word, carried. He tucked his hands under his chin like he was holding on to something and drifted off. I did not sleep at all that night. I thought about how many times I had carried him that way. Against my chest, his head under my chin. The way you can feel the full weight of your child and also this strange lightness when they relax completely, trusting you not to drop them. Imagining something else carrying my son the way I used to made me want to tear the world apart. And I hate admitting this, it also made me feel a tiny relief that he hadn't been alone in the dark. We kept this quiet for a long time. Family therapists, a couple of officials, no media, no forums. But a missing kid who comes back makes noise. Rumors started. people said we staged it, or that Ethan took him. You name it, we've heard it. So this is just me trying to tell it in my own words. I'm not trying to convince anyone. If you don't believe me, you'll probably sleep better. But I can't forget the neat eggs, the spiral prints, my kid walking a mossy log like it was a sidewalk, the knot pattern that still calms him, and that big shape shielding a smaller one from the camera. That's what keeps me up. Not a monster, but something smart enough to have rules. Something that took my child and then brought him home.